the last video where we laced up the front wheel, I made a mistake in the video, and I thought I was recording, and I actually took a picture when I tensioned the thing. So need to do that over. And instead of the wheel that we used last time, we're going to use a similar wheel, same rim, different spoke count. This is a 20 instead of a 24. That's not going to make any difference for our purposes. But I wanted to quickly highlight the hub. This is a November Nimbus tie hub. Probably some of you watching this have had these. These were made by White Industries, and we had them made sort of specifically for us. Great hubs. Having your own products is a little tough, but these were kind of a demo set, and a friend of mine needed a set of wheels, and I thought it would be cool for him to have these. These are the last set in our possession, and they're going to go to Mike, and he's going to love them, and it's going to be cool for him to have them. So what we're going to do now is we've got it laced and tensioned to the point where we had the other one. So we're just going to jump right in where we left off the other time and go from there. A couple of tools that we're going to use here, since we're using CX-ray bladed spokes. I use this bladed spoke holder, and I just use the trusty Park Tool 3-sided spoke wrenches. They work well for me. Okay, we've got the wheel in the stand, and we're going to just, because of the way we do it with the electric screwdriver, each of these spokes is at very closely approximately the same tension. I know that we're going to take 6 to 8 turns on these spokes to get them to full tension. I'm going to start off with a complete round of 3, and that's going to take all the slack out, and you know, we'll have basic tension, and then we'll even them up, and we'll make the thing round, and we'll make the thing relatively true, and then we will bring it up to final true and tension, and it'll be ready to go. So I start at the valve hole, which is right here, and I go in this direction. 3 full turns. Three full turns. And I'm not yet getting really any tension on these, but as I go around and these spokes get shorter, then as I get to the other half of the wheel, I'm trying to count as I do this, you know, in a couple of spokes here, I'll start to feel a little tension because I will be pulling against spokes that have already been tensioned, and probably doesn't, no, it doesn't show up in the video at all, but I'm actually getting a little bit more resistance on these spokes already. I'm now through the halfway mark. Okay, so I have a very little bit of initial tension on these things, and I'm going to go through, just going to spin the wheel once, and it's, you know, not that true, but not that out of true. It doesn't have any gigantic sine waves in it, and I'm going to go and just tension, equalize the tension throughout, and I'm going to do that strictly by ear. And the number of times that you hear the theme from Close Encounters when you build wheels is just simply astonishing. Add a little here. And I'm not trying to get these exact, I'm just trying to get them close. As you know, since we have such low tension on these things, every bit of tension they have as a percent is high, so you know, quarter of a turn sounds like a gigantic change, but it will seem relatively less. It will be relatively less later on when we get toward full tension. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm just going to add one more turn to each spoke, and this will give me a little bit more tension to work against, and then I will do my initial round of what I guess most people call de-stressing. I think of it more as spoke alignment, bedding the spokes into the hubs, making sure that the nipples are firmly seated against the inside of the rim, and that there's no kind of, so the spokes are in a straight line. The spokes aren't bent or curved or wavy. And I'll just pluck a couple of these. See what I mean about close encounters? Okay, so now I gotta change the angle a little bit. I'm gonna take my trusty broom handle here and I wedge it between each spoke, and this really pulls the spokes into the hubs. Not worried about kinking the spokes. And then I just hit them with the hand hammer. Here we are back at the starting point. I'll readjust the camera. You can hear how much tension they lost in that. And that's just because everything's going in a straighter line and bedded down into where it is. Alright, so here's another turn on each nipple. And for those of you keeping track at home, this is the 5th turn on each nipple since the initial pass with the electric screwdriver. So we're starting to see some tension go into it. And the amount of turns that I'm taking now is, you know, obviously purely based on where my screwdriver left it. So as you do this, your references might be different. They will be different. All right. And then at the end, as you start to add more tension, the amount of tension that each turn adds starts to really ramp up. You can probably already hear the higher pitch. So for here, what I'm going to do is take this feeler gauge and I'm going to put it down at the bottom. And I'm going to sight for round. And this is just me visually doing this. You can hear that scrape. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I took a quarter turn on 9 spokes there because they were in a low spot, and then the rim was also off to the right as I look at it. So I'm going to add on 5 spokes that are on the left side, I'm going to add a quarter turn, and that should get it a little more true so I can see it more accurately. Got little low spot right here still. Five, 6, 7. Okay, we've got a tiny little low spot left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. And as I said, you're not trying to bend the rim to do this. You're just trying to move the hub more accurately into the center of the rim. You're going to take it for granted that the rim is a circle, even though it's not perfectly circular. But you're not going to try and bend the rim. You're going to work with the rim's circularity and put the hub right in the middle of that. And you know, that 4-spoke group was about as local as a group as I'll ever work on. If you're pulling hard on one spoke in order to create an improvement in the round, you're really just bending the rim there, and that's gonna wind up coming back out later and causing a problem. And you want to do this all under relatively low tension. And got a little bit of a high spot here. And you'll notice me just squeezing these spokes a whole lot. It seems to me that whenever I make adjustments and then I squeeze the spokes, that sort of distributes that adjustment through the whole wheel and makes it really stable. All right, and despite this tiny little scrape that you hear, which is mostly the rim being a little bit to the right as I look at it, This thing is pretty darn round right now. Okay, so that's that. So I've got it to round, and now I'm going to just make sure that the spoke tensions aren't completely out of hand, you know, relatively imbalanced. So I'm going to do another pluck round. So now here's a good thing right here. So I've got, you know, sort of medium, low, high pitch. As I pull on this one, so I'm going to tension that. I'm going to do it a half turn just to make this more clear. This pitch is going to get higher, and this pitch will have gotten slightly lower. Not as much as I expected, but we're at a higher tension. So I'm just going to bump this one down a little bit. So that was probably almost a full turn difference in spoke tensions between those two adjacent spokes I was working on there, which are these two. And this one didn't settle down as much as I guessed it would when I pulled on this one, but now we're all and those are on the left side as I just did them. Now I'm going to pick this up a little bit so you can see. Okay, so we use this Supreme tension gauge. If you're doing this at home, you're probably using one of these. These are really good for repeatability, by which I mean, you know, if it says that this one is 12 and this one is 12, they really are the same. The problem with this is the absolute measure. You don't know exactly what 12 means. So I rely more on this one. And these are at about 80 kgf. And I want to wind up at about 90. And I have another round of seating to go, so I'm going to drop the tensions down once again with these. And again, I want to do all of this, you know, this either happens here in the stand or while you're riding. And I want it to all happen here in the stand. I want every bit of this wheel's movement taken out of it while it's in the stand, and that way it's gonna have a little bit of a pressure drop when you put a tire on, but that's gonna be it. You're gonna have no pinging, no creaking, no need for readjustment after you do a first ride. The wheel is built and it's stable and it's ready to go. Okay, so let's just quickly see how much tension we took off in that. Now it's down to it was at 80. It didn't take much off that time. It's down at about 75. So now I start working in smaller increments. Just gonna add, and because I've observed that the wheel is fairly true, at this point, in general terms, I feel comfortable working with as much tension as I have now. If it was more out of true, I would not add tension, but rather I would true it. And the way you true it is never ever just by pulling tension on one side. If you pull tension on one side, you need to ease tension on the opposing spoke. So for example, that's my complete loop there of a half turn. If the rim was out of true toward this side, I would ease this depending on the amount of out of true, but you know, as an example, I might ease this a half a turn and then take these each, you know, opposing neighbor 1/4 of a turn. That would keep the amount of tension in the wheel the same, but it would, you know, just move the whole thing over very gently. And that would be a huge adjustment, you know, to make a half turn adjustment like that. As you'll see in a couple of minutes, we get down to like underneath 1/10 of a turn adjustment. Okay, so now we're at like 5.5 turns into this thing, maybe 6. And we're back up to 80. I'm going to take a quick check on the true. All right. I sure wouldn't send it out like that, but it's not bad. And what I'm doing now is just checking the dish. And I only put one feeler gauge on my truing stand. Do not trust the Park Tool feeler gauges here to be, if you're using both of them, they're not going to tell you the dish. They're terrible like that. So this wheel is dished pretty well, which means it's in the center. It's got a little bit of out of true, as you can hear there, but it's so little that I'm going to be able to do that at final tension. So I'm just going to add another half turn to each here. Oops. And you notice how this blade holder, because I'm using bladed spokes, this blade holder does a really good job of eliminating windup, which is the spoke turning, being dragged around and not just turning on the thread. But you notice that I still back off. You know, I take a turn and put some tension on, and then I back off a little bit, and that's just because I feel in my fingers that there has been some drag on the threads. And I don't know if you can get a sense of this in the video, but you know, I'm squeezing as hard as I can there. All right. Right about at 90 there. And I don't know how good your personal pitch is. I know that mine's pretty good. And I know that that similarity of tone, even though there were tiny little differences in there, I know that those were very close. I'm not going to correct for that, except for that one spoke that was kind of flat. Checking dish once again, just because I'm neurotic. And yeah, we're super well centered on this thing. And so now I'm going to ease tension and pull tension. Ease, pull. Get the biggest part of the error right here in this group of spokes. I'm going to start correcting here. And again, if you're, hey, I want to give a try at truing my wheels, you got to move both spokes at least. Usually I move 3. So you got, the spoke in the middle, and then the 2 across the hull. You never want to have too much stress going into one spoke. I always think of this concept of like tapering the tension. You never want to have any concentrations of tension in the thing. Okay, so I wound up a little bit much there. And hopefully one of these cameras picks up just how small these movements are. I can't tell you exactly, but that might have been 1/10 of a turn, maybe 1/20th of a turn. It was very, very small. And then as you get into these tiny, tiny, tiny small ones, that's when you can start moving just one spoke. Right here. I tensioned those spokes maybe a degree. And that's why I felt comfortable doing it with only one. It's just the super fine tuning that you do on one side alone. A little bit left here. But even still, one of the nice things about bladed spokes is how much control they give you. Again, I want to do that so there's no movement. Alright, I got a tiny little bit of movement here, and I mean way smaller than a human hair. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop the feeler gauge down. Alright, so now I'm at the corner, outside corner of the rim. Okay, so here's me shaking the camera all over the place. Okay, flip the camera back to the original spot there. It's not moving at all as I do that. it's dished basically perfectly. Yeah, I wish I had like a better way to show this against the feeler gauge, because this thing is really, really nice. But this is ready to go. So we're going to take this out of the stand and tape it up and put it in a box, clean it off. So the big takeaways there are that you want to add tension gradually, right? I took those initial 3 turns, and then the biggest passive turns I took was 1 full turn, and then I started taking half turns, and then I was taking quarter turns and smaller at the end. So you never want to add tons of pressure at once. You want to sneak up the pressure into the rim. That will, keep the rim round, as you won't try to bend the rim. You won't create hard spots and soft spots in the spokes. You want to squeeze the spokes kind of habitually as you go around. That again prevents any buildup of hard or soft spots within the wheel. You want to get round sorted out relatively early at low tension. It's much easier to do that then. You're not stressing the rim out. Again, it's all about keeping the rim, not stressing out the rim. Let the rim be the rim. So we got it to quite round very early on, and then I knew that it was pretty true, so I could feel good about taking some tension into it, bringing it up towards full tension, and that I would only be required to make very small corrections at the end. If I had bigger out of true, I would have sorted those out at lower tension. But as it was, you can make small corrections in true at high tension, and it's no sweat. So that's getting the thing, from initially tensioned to ready to ride. And this thing, when you put a tire on this thing, when you start to ride it, it's not going to make a sound. You might hear the sound of the rim tape compacting, and it might pop a little bit. You might hear a bit of the tires, engaging into the beads as you inflate the tire, but the spokes, the inside of the wheel, is going to make no noise at all whatsoever. And that's what you're looking for. The tonality of each spoke is basically exact. It's not like piano tuner good, but it's awfully close. That's about that. So this wheel's ready to go, and that's it. This is, again, kind of the easiest wheel that you can build. What we're going to try next time is a build with cross spokes, and that introduces a little bit of challenge into it. And we're also, with that build, going to do dish, which means that the rim and the hub are not completely, there's more spoke tension on one side and less on the other, and that's like a rear wheel or a disc front. So we'll work on that next time. But for now, you should, with this, be fully comfortable giving a try to get a radial front from a pile of parts ready to ride. Okay, thanks for watching.